Hi to everyone. Thank you for attending this conference, and as the previous speaker, I really want to thank the organizers of the HCCC 5 for the invitation to participate to this great event, and especially on the main stage. For the presentation that I will do during the next 37 seconds, it will be about the CAS framework. So CAS framework is an initiative which has been developed primarily by Société Générale Group, the bank, and various partners in order to enhance the use of DLT security tokens by various set of stakeholders. When I saw the set of the speakers, I saw that very few were coming from banks and traditional market participants. That's maybe because in the first year of the use of DLT, many banks and traditional financial participants saw that maybe the use of private blockchain would be more useful. And with regard to our view through Société Générale Forge, which is a fully integrated subsidiary of Société Générale French bank, it's really that the target is permissionless technology. When we see the market, we really make the shift between permission technology, which is some kind of intranet, which could have its use. But when we look at the markets, we clearly see, even though we are technology neutral in order to respond to the request of our clients, we clearly see permissionless technology as the internet potentially as a register for the securities, for their issuance, process, and trades. And CAS is precisely an open source initiative in order to enhance the work between, should I say, traditional CeFi participants and new actors from the DLT environment. So my name is Stéphane Blemus. I work as Secretary General of Société Générale Forge. Besides, I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Copenhagen University in Denmark. So for the CAS framework, what has been really key for us is to understand, because you know, for banks, sometimes it has been hard to assess from the start projects on pure digital assets that tradable on trading new DLT trading venues. So security tokens, as they were more familiar with securities, was maybe the first step to have projects on DLTs. And when we studied the first step towards the issuance and trades of security tokens onto DLT permissionless technology, the issue we find is that many banks, many market participants are creating their own projects, and there is a really issue in the middle term with regard to interoperability. If each project is building its own consortium, its own project, there is the issue to aggregate and to make a clear market with regard to the interoperability of the project and also the standardization of the market practices in order to have that greater market at the international level. So the issue was, beside interoperability, to have the issue of fragmentation. The main purpose of DLT is maybe to lessen fragmentation, to have more lean digital markets, and precisely to avoid potentially some of the limits that exist from country to country, from markets to markets. And if we avoid that step, to have common understanding of the market practices and maybe public goods, some common computer code in partage, there is the risk of fragmentation on the security tokens markets. And as we clearly see, consortia is really insufficient solution. And what is really key is influence and, should I say, co-petition. So we clearly see that issue. And there was also an issue that we see with regard to security token, is that many trade associations are working on the part of the business offer. So there is the custodian working on the custody offer, there is the issuers working on the issue offer, the investor working on the issues for the asset managers and else, but there was really a lack of a holistic approach of what is a security token, how could it be processed in an effective way, and that's why we really worked on having an open source initiative that precisely have two main aims. The first of all is to have a common understanding of the market practices for security tokens. And the second layer is to have potentially open source connector that could be shared by tech service providers and by market participants in order to facilitate the work for issuers of security tokens, investors of security tokens to be onboarded on the project and to avoid unnecessary costs for every project. So from the start, CAST was really to bridge the traditional market practices on securities with the potential DLT capabilities. So we work with several partners on real use case and not on hypothetical issuance of securities to precisely bridge that point, given the fact that the first layer providing the possibility to issue and trade securities on DLT is to have the common regulatory framework. But when you have the law which says you can, you still can't, because you should have the second layer, which is the market practices that allow the traditional actors and the new actors to precisely have a common understanding of how to treat, how to process the securities. So we worked on a white paper that is fully available online in open access of 70 to 80 pages, which clearly summarizes an holistic approach of the security tokens from the issuance. What are the main blocking points on the reg side, on the tech side, and on the operational side in order to respond to the whole life cycle of the assets? And that's the issue that we find, as I said, in many trade associations, is that very frequently there were only parts of the life cycle of the security tokens that were studied. But in order to grow up the market, you should have an holistic approach and to onboard these various initiatives. So precisely CAST was not at all designed to replace the work by many trade associations, but potentially to bridge and to make a link between that work. So that's why we have some discussion with ICMA, with ISDA, with various digital asset associations, and should I say traditional financial market association, in order to bridge that assessment and potentially to have common assessments on the primary market. So how to issue in which way on whatever underlying technology, so whatever it is a private or public blockchain, to avoid such question and to have the market practices no matter what the underlying technology is, to have also the potential to trade such security on the secondary markets. So for the time being, security tokens as securities are somehow limited, because in the US, as in the EU, it's not entirely possible today to have the trading of security tokens on new DLT trading venues. So there is the step towards more liquidity, but we worked substantially in order to have the framework for the OTC trades, and also potentially to leverage, because as of next year, as you may know, in the EU, there will be a new regulation that provides the possibility to trade security tokens onto traditional trading venues or DLT-based trading venues. So it could be a substantial step. I think in the US it may arise also in the few months or years to come, and clearly CAST was really to be ready for that step of more industrialization of security tokens. So how to bridge the capabilities of these new actors and the regulatory framework that is really burdensome for traditional actors and for new actors on the secondary markets. And also to have a common assessment about potentially how, notably for back office, middle office of traditional actors, which have to some extent problems to have links and clear connectivity with how function DLT. So not all back office and middle office know how to read Etherscan. So they really have to have the good connectors, the good way to use the potential of Ethereum and other permissionless network with how they are used to work for traditional actors and new actors. And so it was really important to have such three layers, so the regulatory framework, the operational framework, and the tech framework. And what is really key to understand is that very frequently when service providers are coming to the market participants, they're going to the central bank saying, we have a new product, it will revolutionize the world and take out CCPs, CNSDs, NLs. Very frequently the offer is mainly on the tech part, whereas the issue for regulated participants is mainly on the reg part and on the operational part. And so sometimes there is a lack of understanding between the two worlds, because the spectrum on which they see the perspective is not at all parallel. So really what we have worked is for the CAS framework to work at first with our peers, so to work on real use cases of issuance and trades of security tokens issued on permissionless technology with our peers, so with Goldman Sachs, with MEAG, AXA, the European Investment Bank, Banco Santander, and else, precisely to have that common understanding on the potential use of permissionless technology for securities. Thereafter, it has been really key to work with IT professionals, because we spent various amount of time to onboard our peers or our future clients on the tech side, but we are not a tech company, we are a financial company, so it's not our core work to have that operational and IT perspective. It is maybe your work on IT participants, so we have worked substantially with IT companies in order to certify them to cast, to promote such open source connectors and projects to their own clients. So we work primarily with big companies in order to be perceived by the market, so with Accenture, PwC, KPMG, OnePoint, Grant Thornton, in order to have that actors that are used to onboard their banking and else clients. And as time goes by, we are working with many more DLT ecosystem-based companies in order to onboard them to the CAS framework. And it is especially true as all our projects so far have been done in permissionless technology, and especially Ethereum. So we have worked with many either DLT association or DLT ecosystem, such as MakerDAO, Tezos, ecosystem related to Ethereum, in order to fit with their requirements, and for us to fit with the requirements we had from the regulators. So as I said, really one of the key points was to have through CAST a whole perspective of the whole life cycle of the securities. So no matter what the issuance, the securities events, the trading of the securities, to be in capacity in a single white paper to respond to the main questions to back office, middle office actors of a bank and asset managers about what it would mean, what it would entail as a step in order to be onboarded on the projects. So that was really the first step. And what has been key in CAST is not to work on some potential, and the issue of some trade association is to work on potential use case of proof of concept, while we have really, and that was one of the main requirements from the board of the Société Générale Group, is to work only on real transaction, and to, even though it was experimental transaction, to work only on real transaction provided onto DLT technology. So since 2019, we have realized at first within intra-group transaction within Société Générale Group, and then with external clients, issuer side, investor side, issuances of securities within permissionless technology. So as you see on the screen, every of the transaction has been made in Ethereum. I think it is only the structured product issuance that have been made on the Tezos technology. So at first we really had to have the internal approval within a systemic bank such as Société Générale from the compliance, the rig, the risk, the legal legal team to have all the approval about the first issuance of securities within a public permissionless blockchain such as Ethereum. But the cash leg of the transaction for operational and regulatory reasons were made in a traditional way outside of the blockchain. The first time when we provided the cash leg of the transaction directly within the blockchain was in the second transaction we made. We are really glad that Banque de France was really keen to work with actors precisely to assess the potential to represent digitally the euro directly onto the blockchain in order to have the payment of the transaction, the payment of the securities directly on the blockchain. So in 2020, it was made onto a private blockchain, but there was a substantial step in 2021 where we did an issuance of digital bonds outside of the SG group. So it was the economical arm of the EU, which is the European Investment Bank, that really wanted to be the first supranational to issue digital bonds and to issue digital bonds onto permissionless technology, DLT technology. So the issuance of the digital bonds of the European Investment Bank have been realized onto the Ethereum blockchain, and the payment of such issuance has been made into a digital representation of euro that has been provided by Banque de France, and which make the bridge between traditional way of payment in the euro system and a potential payment directly onto a public DLT such as the blockchain. So we've made these various experiments, experimenting on CAST and growing our understanding of this whole life cycle about security tokens. So at first it was within Société Générale Group that we made that assessment, and then with various peers, various partners. And as you see, in 2022 and especially in 2023, there would be the beginning of the industrialization of security tokens, given the fact that it would be next year possible to trade on trading venue security tokens in a regulated way acceptable by EU regulators. And such step towards more liquidity would enhance the interest of traditional investors or new investors into security tokens. So really the aim of CAST was really to be based only on real life transaction, and all these transactions have been made according to CAST. And the next step towards the end of the year and the next years would be precisely to broaden the scope of the actors with which we will develop such common assessment. So in order to, as I said, CAST at first has been a white paper about the life cycle of the security tokens that is fully available on a dedicated website. What has been really key also is to have the good connectors in order to facilitate the possibility at zero cost that an issuer or an investor uses permissionless technology or whatever technology as an underlying technology. So at first, besides the white paper on the market practices, we have created some tech connectors, what we could call Oracle connectors, which plays the role of APIs between traditional issuer of securities and the way DLT works. What we have perceived is that we really we really had to create such connectors also for investors in order for them to participate at zero cost to this issuance. Because as I said, we are not a tech company. With peers, we created the first online hackathon on CAST, the CAST challenge, where the winners were announced just yesterday in the same room for the Crypto Finance Forum. And so for the jury of such events, we gathered various actors, so from Banque de France, from SWIFT, from Visa, from AXA Investment Managers, ABN AMRO, Banco Santander, and Société Générale, in order for the jury to be really traditional actors from the payment side, from the bank side, from the investor side, and to have as participants only IT companies. So there have been candidates from India, from Kenya, from the US, from the UK, from various European countries on a really use case, on 5 use cases that we clearly see a blocking point from the investor side with regard to the connector they needed. And after such cast challenge, the 5 winners that have been selected were first Kaiko on the use case that's really important for investors is how you feed data directly onto the blockchain. As I told you, many back office, middle office don't want to have a direct link to the blockchain, so they want to have a connector in order to facilitate the way of feeding data, for example, interest rates, rating rate or else directly onto the blockchain, and such connector was not entirely existing into an open source way. So they win such award in order to have the connector to feed more easily data within a smart contract already existing into a permissionless blockchain. There was also the need on the issuance of the security and on the issuance of the cash to be multi-chain and to be in compliance with regulation and in capacity to promote interoperability between various smart contracts of security tokens. So on that use cases, BlockPulse and WeFondia won the award. And there was also 2 key elements for investors. At first, it is how to read more effectively the blockchain, such as, for example, Ethereum. So, for example, a back office and middle office of traditional financial actors, as I told you, doesn't want to watch Etherscan. They want to proceed to their traditional management, data management systems. And so it is the question, how do you feed data to these actors to read more easily what is on the blockchain if they don't want to proceed to Etherscan and else? So how do you have such visual reporter providing the data more efficiently to the investors? And also the issue of the connectivity with SWIFT. As you know, many cash payment data is processed through the SWIFT system, and for investors it was really a blocking point to avoid that connectivity most efficiently made between the way DLT is made and the SWIFT system is made. So there were the winners from Finastra side, and really for us, Cast Challenge was really a way to be the first open source contest that promoted a link between traditional actors and new actors or IT participants in order precisely to create such open source building blocks, or in a way there is public goods for the security tokens markets. And all of these components have been created under the, should I say, the most open source license, which is APH 2.0, in order to be accessible to anyone, and precisely to, by being accessible to anyone, to facilitate the adoption of security tokens by various kind of actors. So for us, the next step is really to assess more effectively the work of CAST with many actors from the reg side and from the DLT side on real use cases into the next few years, and also to assess what could be the governance, because at first it was created by Société Générale and its peers. The aim is really to have a governance that is partly from the reg side and partly from actors, whether they are DLT association, DLT trading venue, various kind of actors, service providers, to have that gathering. It was very difficult because we see that the whole aim of many existing associations is precisely either to be a banking association or an assessment association or a pure digital asset association, but there was a difficulty to have the link. And what we are precisely willing to do is to have that link, so to have that work together, as we have in the last few months with MakerDAO and various DeFi participants, so to have that common understanding of what could be the future security token markets, so what could be potentially the governance body that would be acceptable by both regulated entities and by the new players in order to have that common work on these open source components, and also that work on the market practices, and time after time to be even more disruptive in the way the regulation and the project would be made on such markets. And so, as I told you, the real aim through this potential governing body is to bring together, so of course, regulated entities in order to foster the project and to have more listening from regulators, but also various crypto service providers and various consulting firms in order to have gradually that common assessment and that common work between this governance body and various trade associations in order to enhance that capacity to have work together. That was it for me. If you want, the slide will be much longer on what is CAST, especially with regard to the definition of the actors and the roles on the security tokens markets and on the three main framework of the CAST framework. So if you ask the organizer or myself on LinkedIn or else, I would be really happy to send you the slides and to develop some dialogue, because what is really key, and the whole aim of my presence today on stage, is really to have that common work between regulated actors such as us, investment firm, and yourself as new players in that space. Thank you.